Okay. Sairam, people who are online, I'm sorry, I was muted, so maybe you did not hear me till now. If you can give us a thumbs up, that would be great. And is Lakshmi around to actually? Okay, Lakshmi. Lakshmi. Okay. So just some. Okay. So just etiquette wise, just want to remind everyone to mute your cell phones, be respectful. Let's talk from the heart. Let's not display our intellectual prowess. Let's try to add something or question something that can benefit all of us. Please believe that once you have a question, we are sure that others will too. So with that, the best way to participate in this study circle, as we all know, is to try our leave our egos, try to leave our egos outside of this bhajan hall and discussion. So with that, we'll just move on. I know I did not have the time to update everything. Last week, we did end our chapter 8 and we started chapter 9. We listened to the entire chapter 9 for Bhagavat Vahini and we talked about various things, especially about Dhritarashtra's feelings and how the passing of Krishna, or at least the bad omens that Dhritarashtra has experienced, how that matters and how it will be relevant in today's world to be actually talking about such things. Today we will continue our discussion, but then move on to one of the discourses from Swami, because I think this is a great time to actually put this together with what is inherent in most of us, and that is fear. So with that, I just wanted to open this platform to any further questions, discussions that we may have from from our previous session.
Bhagavatha Vahini, Chapter 9.
Okay, so let's move on. So we did talk about a little bit of these things. I just want to see if we want to go back and discuss what we discussed Dharmaraja's perception of bad omens, and if anyone has forgotten what this chapter is about, we can go ahead and kind of summarize it. This is basically about ascent of Krishna. Ascent meaning Krishna leaving his body. That's what we are talking about. And most of this chapter is based on Dharmaraja's omens that Dharmaraja is seeing, and how it's impacting him, and how he's lamenting over it, and how his brothers are supporting him in ways that they can, and also trying to find reasons that these are just his observations, and not really, they do not mean anything. So with that, that pretty much summarizes the entire chapter that we read. So if you have anything else to add, we can. Otherwise, we can just go through our discussion questions. Okay, so we did talk about Dharmaraja's perception of bad omens and how we can differentiate between genuine intuition and fear-based thoughts. We did talk about, how do we manage our thoughts to maintain a balanced perspective. Then we talked about what does Krishna's role as the divine protector teach us about the importance of relying on guidance, and how Dharmaraja and actually the Pandavas have always been lucky to have that divine guidance. And then we talked a little bit about in what ways signs, omens, and intuition serve as spiritual guides. How does cultivating inner awareness help us navigate changes in both the external world and our inner spiritual life? We did not completely go through this. If anyone has anything to add here, we can. Otherwise, we can go on and talk about spiritual leadership, which we actually touched upon last week. So the last set of questions that we had here was talking about spiritual leadership, what it means. How can we balance worldly duties with our spiritual journey? Is that a balance that we can achieve? And we did discuss about again how actions are the only ones we are responsible for. The result of those actions should not be something that we should rely on. So these are things that we did talk about, but again, if we want to discuss something, the last question that we have, which we have not touched at all, is what spiritual lessons can be drawn from the impermanence of the material world? How does detachment from material existence help us find inner peace amidst societal and personal challenges?
Going to the first part,
Yes.
your first question was how to balance between the day-to-day life and the spiritual journey.
Yep.
We need to understand they are not two separate things. Number one, it is just one thing, and the day-to-day routines need to be according to the spiritual path which our gurus have shown us. It will might take some time to inculcate it or to all the to make a proper day-to-day schedule. But making a schedule might be different part of it, but it is never. It's not. They are not two different things. That's what I just wanted to emphasize. It's one thing.
Thank you, Manojji. Anyone?
Yeah, I think that, see, looking at the world as outside, that's all due to Maya. So if we are able to dealing that, then that is the ideal. Then our life is basically spiritual. So whatever we do is spiritual. So if we are able to dealing that, only thing is if we are attached to the materialistic world, then we are not going to feel that spiritual. Then there is a distinction there.
Yeah, but I agree at some level. I understand that the worldly living and spiritual is one, as Manoj is saying. But that oneness is what is hard to balance. That is the one that we find hard to justify or achieve in many ways. Sometimes it doesn't look from the worldly perspective, it doesn't look like we are going in the right direction. When we ourselves in the spiritual journey may be on the direction that is right for us.
I don't want to give away today's thought for the day is very relevant, but anyway, but it's Swami says that it is you have to be prepared, because whatever is happening, that is what Swami's definition of Sharanagati is. So if Sharanagati is nothing but accepting whatever happens is for my good. So if we are able to do that, that is, we should just go through all that is happening in our life, accepting that it is for our good. I know it is tough, but that, there is no other escape. Let's put it that way. There is no other way. You cannot live any other way other than living the way you are right now. So there is no point in just lamenting or having a fear or some expectation of something that is not there. There's no point in doing that, because all those things are going to be not true, and it's going to lead to what do you say, sorrow or sadness. Yeah.
Please take the mic.
I understand that we have to accept whatever comes to us. Yes, we do accept it. But that sadness in our heart, that we are not able to take it away. Swami, what did I do wrong? Why am I suffering like this? So that is the mind, monkey mind, it is coming.
Saira, before accepting or acceptance, we have to develop faith first, I believe. Okay, so if we have faith enough, and then whatever happens, yes, many of us have so many things good things, bad things happening to us or to our friends in the family. But once we have the faith, that takes you to the surrender part, which is acceptance. Whatever is happening is good for me. We don't know why I'm going through this right now. You know, just don't think it is sadness, but think that Swami is there holding my hand. I will get through this. Or another way of looking at it, whatever is happening is good for me. This is a test. Okay. So I learned something from it. That kind of a mentality, because we cannot sometimes get rid of the problem on our own, you know. So in that case, maybe the only thing is spiritually we elevate ourselves to think beyond the mental, physical suffering, to go to the spiritual way of acceptance, surrendering, and start with faith.
Sairam,
Sir.
my opinion, there is a intermediate stage between the world and spiritual. The reason why I'm saying this one is, in nature, there's no spirituality, or maybe spirituality is nature. Because you take any dog or a cat, or no dog or cat sit and say, I want to get moksha, man. I don't want to compare with, they never think like that way, right? So no rose compares with other rose saying that it has more petals than I do. There's no comparison. So there is, in life, there are two things. One is worldliness and then the nature. The spirituality is later. If you understand this too. So in nature, we have hunger. Every animal, every living being has that hunger. And sleep, resting. There are natural things, right? They are very natural. And what is worldly then? I'm hungry today. That is nature. And I want to have dum biryani. That is worldly, right? I'm tired. I want to sleep. Is nature. But I want to sleep on the rose bed. Okay, is worldly, right? So as long as we know the difference, I don't know how many of the center has that activity where kids used to be in our center. I'm from Seattle. So we used to practice when the kids are very young age, need versus want. You all did that, right? So so that's a 1 week practice and everybody doesn't know what is need, what is what. Mom, I want to eat pizza. Then they have to come up with these, the need and the want. Okay, why you do that exercise? I mean, if you ask, probably at that age, they don't know. But the one of the reasons behind this kind of exercise is how close you can become to the nature, how close you are bringing yourself to the nature. Okay, so that's one of the main ideas. Why do you want that? Why do you want that kind of exercise? The more closer we are to the nature, because as I said, in nature, there is no comparisons. There is, right? In nature, there is no jealous. So that is one step closer to whatever you call enlightenment or spirituality or nirvana, whatever. So, we all have to be close to the nature. The more we leave the worldliness, the more we get. Detachment is a big word, but the more we are close to nature, we'll get more peace.
Thank you.
Sairam, just to answer that question particularly, like everybody else explained, you can look at life as a yin yang. It's a complete circle. Half, if you people know how it looks, right?
Yes.
Half is white, half is black. So good, bad, spiritual, unspiritual, high, low, it's all the same. It'll all fall within the same circle. That's what life, you can't escape. Like Venkatji said, this is the life you got to go through both. Everyone will go through both. Yes. But how do you, balance it? That's the key, right? The key is in the middle way a lot of times.
Correct.
That's what even Buddhism says, right?
Right.
It is often called the middle path because of that.
Yeah.
So don't get too attached and, but you learn the right conducts. The first step is understanding, right? Which is what the purpose of the study circle is, of all the books we read, is for the right understanding. Once you have the right understanding, then you have the right conduct. Then you change your conduct once you have the understanding. You can't change it when you don't know what to change and what for you're changing. Once you change it, then you will already automatically go towards that, spiritual path that you're looking for. It's not like a active thing that happens. It is an automatic thing that happens. In fact, when he said nirvana, the very meaning of nirvana is to breathe out. Breathe out, not breathe in. So if you're always clinging to life and breathing in, you'll die, because take a deep breath and hold it. No one can hold it for long. You have to let it go. Only when it let it go will it come back to you. That's the key, letting it go, accepting with faith and all that is the key.
Yeah. Yeah. Sairam, everyone. Just to add to what is being said, I agree to Manoj's point that both are same, right? You being present is spiritual. It's like our existence itself is spiritual in my mind. And what helps to be aware of that, one thing that is helpful to me is keeping thought, word, and deed in alignment. That brings the utmost peace. And then everything we are doing is an offering to God. That's how I'd like to live my daily life as much as possible. And it came with a lot of practice and learnings from, like you said, you have to have the understanding before right? And another word that I toy with is a detached attachment. You cannot be completely detached to live in this world. Then there the question comes: how can you do your duties? How can you succeed in worldly life, academics or corporate, whatever that is? The answer to me is detached attachment. You have to be duty oriented, do your duty, and leave the rest to God. Yep, just want to add those two.
Sairam. Yeah, I do agree with whatever everyone said, and a couple of last study circles I couldn't be part of it, but it's all interrelated. So I would like to tell like a couple of instances in my real life experience, which I feel, okay, Sairam, I agree with whatever. So for me, first thing that I give priority is inner peace, and are you happy or not with what your actions are? So it's all like, I am an electrical engineer. So when I graduated, I was like super excited to be part of this public sector electrical department as a subdivisional officer. And it was a training session where in a local area, we all are aware of how the bribery is all and how the existence would be there. So there were so many instances where I was being offered under the bench or openly. And it's an area where I know each and every person in the area because that's my grandmother's place where I've been posted. So I know that was too early age, but I had a very good future if I would have gone there. But I had to take a decision, like however I try, I cannot change things there, but I quitted indirectly in a way. By Swami's grace or God's grace at that time, I got a good opportunity because of my divisional officer. But I had to take a decision at that moment. That was one of the actions which I took, which should have been a good future. But then I feel good about it because going back before I came to US, that was one of the instances where I feel. And in last 18 years, this year I happened to have another big, I would say committees are very big thing in our area, where I was like actively participating in all the committee decisions and a lot of things. And I'm very attached because when I do volunteer, I give my 200%, I would say, without any expectations, which I try, but sometimes we happen to end up. But there were certain decisions open-ended where I had to take a decision because which was taking away my peace. And that was a very, very tough decision where in a group of 20 people, 19 people would be on one side, and I am on the only person who is on the other side. But at that situation, again by Swami's grace, this time I would say, because I open-heartedly said, Swami, give me the path to choose. I will lose the effort that I've put these many years, or I leave out of it. But I don't want to take any action which will not take away my peace, and I'm not answerable to my own self. And that decision made me to come out of that. But not a single second I felt bad about it. And I felt proud because I was very peaceful. And that is what we need at the end of the day. And I'm happy. I will still volunteer. I will do my service. I'll be part of everything because that's my nature. And we should not give up what our real nature is because of these things happening around. So I just wanted to tell.
Thank you,
Sarah.
Rakhi. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else want to add? Yeah, please go ahead, Manoj.
No, I should congratulate Rakhi
Yes.
ji for being in that state and standing for your peace and values is so important, so important. That's why I would talk about the karma yoga. It's easy to say accept whatever comes to you, but in my opinion, that's not what Lord wants us to do. Lord wants us to do our best effort to make the things better as per your spiritual or knowledge or whatever your sanskaras are.
Yes.
Number one. So karma is so important, number one. And along with the prayer, along with the blessing. And in spite of that, if you don't get it, if you don't get the things done rightly, or which is socially acceptable or right in any, according to the period, then you will say, okay, maybe this was God's wish. But you have to do your best effort with prayer and then accept it. I just wanted to clarify what Venkaji wanted to express, basically, number one. Number two, Sir has mentioned about the animals and human beings. So Lord has given them limited faculties. Lord has provided us with much higher faculties. So they are, as per Vedanta and Sanatana Dharma, they are the bhog yonis. Human being is the only karma yoni. Let's understand it very clearly.
Right.
If we do not, so they are here to bhog their or prarabdha karmas. They are not here to develop more karmas. We are here to not only bhog our old karmas results, we are here to develop more karmas also. So this is the biggest theory of Sanatana Dharma. We are not just here to receive what we have done in the result of previous karma. We are not only here to receive, we are here to do the karmas also, which will help us not only to that what differentiates between us and the animals. Number
Right.
one.
Yeah.
That will help us not only to do good deeds, but also to reach to where Baba is trying to lead us to. So these are the 2 points I wanted to clarify further. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. Yep. Agreed. Yes, we do have the faculties to not only develop our karmas, also burn our karmas. In the karmic cycle, we are an advanced species. So with that, let's just come to the end of this question series, or at least for the discussion of the chapter. I was thinking, what spiritual lessons can be drawn from this impermanence of the material world? So this material world is impermanent, we know, but how can we be, yes, detachment. Detachment, I think, is very strong word, but I do like the detached. I like that. That's a better way to put it. Yes, please.
Sairam. See, the thing is, I think if we go back to the chapter,
Yes.
Dharmaraja and because of Dharmaraja's influence, all the other brothers
Mhm.
are all displaying just the human characteristics. if we attach to the materialistic world, what happens? Because they are just projecting what could have happened, which may be true, may not be true. At that point, they don't know. But they are just imagining based on so many things that they see, whether they are omen or intuition, that's a secondary thing.
Correct.
But just going with that symptoms, attaching to that, and then feeling the fear, that itself displays all the human characteristics. So if we want to go, that's what we all go through. If we want to get away from that, the only way is to have that faith, as was pointed out, and then complete surrender.
So the
That's-
way to that faith, I think, makes sense when we do the need versus want. As that actually decreases our. At least we can control the ceiling on desires. Can be accomplished with that for sure. Need versus want. We can also see the detachment to an extent, but at the end of the day, to live this life, there is certain things that you need. All right, and that depends on the call, that the time of your existence. Like back in the day, they had a horse chariots. Today, if we want horse chariots, it's not going to work for us. That is not our thing. So again, we need to kind of work towards that, to find that inner. And I agree with Raki about the inner peace, but it's not easy always to do that. And I'm sure even for her, it has been a challenge. She's been able to overcome that challenge and do that. So that is something that we can definitely learn. But yeah, please go ahead.
So I see that what is a need versus want. Right now, we may think that these things are need. Okay. But then if you look at Victor Kanu, for example, his need was a house, a mansion, probably a Mercedes or some car with chauffeur and all that. That was his need. And Swami said, give up everything, start a school in Zambia, right? Zambia. So at that time, when he gave up all that, his needs were the ones that were given up. So then if at that time when he gave up everything and came, his needs were less. But still, so if we were to live there, those will be needs. So in other words, what we consider as need, we have to really evaluate, and some of the things that we may think as need could be considered as a want.
Yeah, depending on your situation.
And I mean, if you analyze strictly, many of the things that we think as a need could be considered as a want.
Right.
So that's we need to think deeply.
Yeah. So again, coming to that, right? So right now, the horrible stories that we hear from the Palestine side of the house. Now they don't have water. Their water is all is muddy now to even drink, right? So those are things that really bothers you when you are thinking about spirituality, or you're thinking, okay, there is evil, yes, but the person who is being impacted are that community that is living in that area or whatever. Again, their needs are now so basic, right? And for us to talk about all this, and we are not able to provide water. It doesn't have to be Lebanon. Today I'm referring to that. Even in India, there are places where it's very hard to get water. That water is basic need of existence, and that in itself is a problem. When that becomes a problem, that's when all the spiritual lessons that we learned is not going to be put into practice there.
I want to add to what Venkatji mentioned, and Bhavaniji is talking about the water and these expensive things. Now, where we come from, my father, when they moved from Pakistan after partition, they came empty-handed. We have heard these stories, we have watched it in movies, they have gone through it. And my grandmother and my father used to tell me all those stories about when there was no water. We came here, there was no water. And they had even in the fields, when they were moving from that part of the country to this part of the country, they have gone through the toughest part. That makes me emotional. Drinking water from the ditch.
Yes.
Drinking water from the ditch, to save the life of my parents, That's what my grandma had to do. There was no water, means no water on this deserted area. So coming from that part of life they have lived to this part of life where there's everything. So I'm not advocating this, materialistic thing. I'm not advocating that part. But if you have money, who else will buy these expensive houses? I mean, you don't get just have to be not attached to it. Who else will buy these expensive shirts? Who else will buy Teslas? If you have wealth, you have it. When we did not have wealth, we did not have it. So it's all your prarabdha. Only thing is to stay connected to the roots. I go back to my home in India, in my home, that 3-bedroom small house, one flat. I sleep on the floor still. All the beds are eaten by termites. So there's nothing left there. So I sleeping on that bed in the small flat and coming back here, living in this lavish house. So just everything is a part of your prarabdha. Just have to stay to your roots. That's it. I mean, that's what is needed. So my father feels proud of this living, but he has lived that life also. So be prepared to be in any of those things. When you are about to leave, you can leave it also. When you're asked to leave, you should be able to leave. That's what is required. Everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah, not getting attached. Very nice point, Manojji. Thank you. All right. I thought if we are ready to move on, we can. As part of this, I thought we should talk about a little discourse on fear, because in this chapter, what was the underlying piece that was established is the fear behind all these omens, and that was the underlying part. And I'm very open with this when I always say my first reaction to anything is fear. Faith comes later to me after I sit and lament upon my fear. So again, which is a fact for me. So yeah, Om, can you please read this discourse and then we will continue the discussion. Thank you.
Um, how can one get happiness in this human life, which is filled with fear, doubt, agitation, and ego? Even the happiness you get is associated with fear. Fearlessness is now nowhere to be seen in life. Then how can one be free from fear? Fearlessness is where detachment is. How can one develop detachment? It is possible one only in the proximity of God. That is why Sankara taught, O man, in order to be free from fear and attain a state of fearlessness, take refuge in the principle of the Atma. It is only there can you understand the reality. Happiness, merit, profit, and light are nothing but the absence of sorrow, sin, loss, and darkness, respectively. In fact, they are not separate from each other. The Atma is the fundamental basis and source of all these. Here is a flower with a number of petals. These petals appear to be different from each other, but all of them originate from the same source. Flower is one, but petals are many. Similarly, innumerable waves originate from the infinite ocean. No wave appears to be identical with the other. Waves are many, but their source of origin, that is the ocean, is one. You find in the waves the same wetness, coolness, and salinity as you find in the ocean. Out of the waves emerges the froth. Waves are the basis of froth. An ocean is the basis of waves. The water in the ocean assumes the form of waves, and the water in the waves manifests as froth. But in fact, all the three are one. That is non dualism, Advaita. Similarity, a person is the combination of body, mind, Atma. Mind is the basis of body, and the Atma is the basis of mind. In fact, the Atma is the fundamental basis of everything. That is the principle of non dualism taught by Sankara. People who do not realize this truth take to the physical, ephemeral, and worldly path and undergo many difficulties and hardships before they are able to realize the Atmic principle.
Thank you, Om. So this is a little small discourse on fear that Swami had talked about. So with that, I just thought, the first question that I have here, and this is just a few things that came to my mind. So, what is your definition of happiness, and how does it differ from mere pleasure or temporary satisfaction? I think that is something that we need to really think about. What is temporary? I know that the world is temporary, so please don't give me that answer. Oh, so yeah, so that is not the thing. But really, I mean, what is momentary as a pleasure versus the definition of happiness for us. As we are growing, I mean, older. Now we are not 6 years old, because at 6, I think it is very easy. The minute you get your way of having a candy, it makes you happy, and that you think is the world. And then as we grow up, we realize that happiness is not lasting long enough. And the older we get, the lesser the time, yeah, the time for that happiness reduces. The same candy doesn't make me happy anymore, because I'm worried I'll put on calories or have diabetes, either ways. So yeah. So my point is that how does it, what is your definition, or how can we help define this happiness for ourselves? No, I didn't say. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone? Because we need to know, right? How will you define your happiness? How do you define happiness for yourself?
Um, Happiness with a big H is the one which is inside all of us. It is our true nature, Satchid Ananda. And that Ananda comes by itself. It's not from outside circumstances, which do cause temporary satisfaction and pleasure, but they go away. But this inner happiness, which all spiritual people have, which is permanent, that's why you don't see them very depressed or unhappy with what's happening in the world, because always that inner happiness is coming, which is God, which is the reality. Everything else is illusion and a dream. And it doesn't mean that we don't do our duties or don't suffer, I mean, feel bad for people or try to help them. But inside, we should always be attached to the inner reality, inner truth, which Kabir also said. You just have it's a kind of abhyasa. It doesn't come, and especially not when you're young. You have to go through everything, go through all the pleasures, and then it depends on how advanced you are in your previous lives. Very soon, the inner spiritual hunger or the aim for the real happiness comes.
Yeah, so it's very similar to what she mentioned, what my thoughts were. In the discourse, one thing that was mentioned, the analogy of the ocean and waves. That really struck a chord with me, right? We are all the waves from the one Atma and the God. And so, like she said, happiness is our nature. And the Maya takes over, and we kind of get distorted time to time. So how I cope with that is, I remember that happiness is a choice we have to make. Like whatever choice we make in life, that's what we feel. So how you respond to life instead of react, when you are in a responsive mode, making happiness as a choice becomes easier. If you are reactive mode, it gets tougher, because in every situation we are choosing how we want to respond, right? You can, if you get hurt, you could react and scream. That's temporary, right? Then you respond and take care of that, but be glad that it did not end up being life threatening, it a small one. So that response, I think, going back to these quotes that we read, life is 1% of what happens to it and 99% how you react to it. I'd called reaction is very impulsive. It's not thought through. That's why I would like to call it responding, right? and also taking advantage of all these discourses and all the learnings and choosing happiness when you have an option, right? That's the only choice you should keep in every situation. That's my perspective. Thank you.
So, Sairam, on a, we all have heard this as Sachidananda. You're the Atman. You're everything. But when you're living practically this life, that's not what you're remembering every moment. So, on a practical level, what I try to what I understood and try to pursue it, which is going to be very difficult and maybe impossible. But true happiness is complete cessation of desire. You know, you don't have desire, nothing else will follow. That is a hard goal, but you don't have these wants, desires. Automatically, the more less those things become, the more happy you are automatically, you know. So our exercise on a practical basis should be, how much can I decrease them? You know, slowly and slowly and slowly. The more you get to that goal, there you are. That's my practical take on it.
I've heard from one Swami saying, Hinduism is Hinduism. You have to go in and less out, finally.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that is my favorite. Yeah, the happiness, the happiness as we call it, we always look outside. So that is the point. When you look outside, these are all fleeting happiness, you know. So that is not permanent, impermanent. So Adi Shankara says, when you walk by the ocean, the spray of it, you feel it and you think that is, oh, the water, it's so nice, feeling cool. But there is a whole ocean there. We don't realize that. That is how the Ananda is. Ananda is only a state. It is not a feeling. You reach the state by calming our mind and our, going inwards is always gives you that happiness. But outwardly, if you look outside, we will never find happiness. So then the spiritual practices help us going towards inside, that is very important to keep your mind, happy. But again, happiness is at mind level only.
Correct. So that's what yeah. So happiness is, yeah, I understand the impermanence of that happiness, right? But still, that is a choice, right? We have to make that choice to actually elevate ourselves spiritually. Otherwise, there is no way to achieve that at all. Me, my mind is not going to get me anywhere, right? Right. Very nicely said. Yes, please.
Yeah. Sairam, I think if you take that analogy that Swami has said, if we train ourselves to look at the water all the time and not even look at the waves or the froth that Swami talks about, then we are basically the reason why we are not happy, if we look at that way, is because of our materialistic attachments. So the moment we go inwards, I mean, it's all everybody had said that same thing. So if we go inward and then see that, if we say these are all materialistic, if we can do that, and then obviously our innate nature is happiness or joy or peace.
Yeah.
So
at a level, I understand material can be undone, right? But we also have our bonds that we are born to, our responsibilities, our duties, our inherent pursuit of, developing relationships. Once we are born into, we are born with this body mind that we are saying, right? So even that actually gives us the attachment that we talk about. Material things can be let go easier than the attachments of this of the yeah, I mean, like the small I that I have today, right? So those are things I think get even more harder to accomplish, in my opinion. Yes, please go ahead.
So the question Bhavaniji had posed is the definition of happiness, actually. So it was not that ananda we're talking about. We are talking about at a very high level. I get happy when I get good food.
Yes.
I get happy when I get good clothes. I see good people or see some pleasant views. So whenever I am having nice food, I don't want interruption in having my pleasure. So I tend not to talk while eating. Actually, that's not the American way, but that's what I try to do. To eat focus. So happiness comes whenever. I'm digressing a little bit. Happiness will come whenever you get the focus, because it is a direct reflection of Atman, which comes in the Chidabhas and you feel it. Happiness comes whenever you get focused. Everyone has experienced different kind of happinesses, all kind of happiness. We all grown up people. So all those moments of happiness were not something to be they were not bad. They were happinesses. They were indicating us, because with focus that reflection comes in. We get happy. So now we have learned this Vedanta. Now we realize retrospectively what that happiness was and what this happiness is still. So going to that level of understanding, we come to know. So reflection is good, but we have to go to the original. We don't have to stay till the, we don't have to stick to the reflection part. This happiness is a reflected Ananda. The true Ananda is the original one, which is me, myself. So understanding Anandam and the Brahman is knowing is being. That's the biggest theory of Ananda and Brahman. I mean, I don't want to go into that's a bigger, higher.
Right.
But getting to that level of knowing is being Brahman. That's it. These all happinesses are the reflection of the same Ananda, which we all know and understand.
Yes, but we are bound by this time. We are bound by this moment. Our definition will be only this.
There's nothing wrong in experiences these happinesses, provided you get aware these happinesses are coming not from there, they're coming from here.
Got it.
From inside. That's what
from our
saying.
body. Is that what?
Inside only. Yeah. Because of our focus. If you're eating the most tasty food, but if you're not focused, you'll not get happiness. So that's the whole example of.
I understand the happy.
No desire, no interest, nothing. But still, it is not that we are not happy or something like that. Sometimes, yes, when we go to Sai Center, yes, we are happy. But before we go to Sai Center, oh, I have to put on something and I have to look presentable. And when we think of all these things, then the happiness is gone. That is what I'm saying. Thank you.
So, talking about happiness, right? And Manoj is saying that food gives him when he loves. So, again, you give the same food to an American person, he's not going to love that same food. So, basically, what I'm trying to that you have to condition yourself. So, we all have that ability, or we have been given that thing. Like, we know that we are all, as he said, we are not bogas. We know that we are spiritual beings and we are towards that. So we have to constantly be aware of it. And for example, if you give me too much fried food now with all my diet that I am in, it doesn't sit right with me. If I eat it one day, I am thrown off. So now that practice. So similarly, the spiritual practice is also very, very critical. When you keep practicing it, it automatically becomes a part of you, and you don't need to put in too much work in figuring out happiness or stuff. So that is the part we need to do, is that once we start, like Swami says, get up at Brahma Muhurtam, meditate, do that, always think about God so when you practice that, automatically that happiness, that definition of happiness that comes through, and that fear goes away. You have faith that Uma was talking about. So we have to take that initial thing of, like physically we need to go to the gym to get active, right? Similarly, we have to do that spiritual practice to get spiritually, healthy. Otherwise, none of these things, all these talks are just going to be talks.
Yeah, the happiness, Manoj was saying, we even eating food or getting new clothes. Yes, they are all happy. Happy, they bring happiness to us, but they are not permanent. If you eat one cookie, you like it. Second one, okay. Third, fourth, by the fifth time, you don't want to eat. You don't even want to look at that. So there is some ceiling there for us for these material thing. It should be though. So that, but another way of looking at these kind of temporary happiness, this is also that Brahman is experiencing all the worldly things through the jiva, if you want to look at it that way. But the way to get the happiness also, we have to pay attention to, the dharmic way. We cannot say whatever, robbing a bank brings me happiness. It will lead you into, prison anyway. So that kind of a thing. There is a story, this guy, he said, oh, I get so much happiness doing this job. Okay, then they said, you do the job, but you won't get paid. And then he said, no, I need the money. Okay, you get the money, but you cannot use it. Oh, no, I have to use it. I have to provide the family. You can use it, but not for your family, but some other family. But then, no, but they are not mine. See, finally it comes to what is for me. See, we always think of me, my happiness. But again, the happiness is temporary, whatever. And the only happiness is going towards God. Rest of them are temporary. The same point.
Yeah, please go ahead, Venkat. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So I just wanted to understand, does happiness gets achieved whether you have a need or like when you achieve the need or like a want?
The answer to that is, so that's what so we're talking about this forum is basically focused on happiness part right now. As Umaji has mentioned, it has to be dharmic, no doubt. So happiness will be achieved by your focus. Don't worry about, so that question is different from the other part of it. When we talk about detachment, that topic comes need and want. But the happiness has nothing to do with the need and want part. Happiness will come whenever you focus on something. That is the happiness. You can try to understand it deeply. Whenever your mind gets focused, you will get the happiness. That's it.
What is then, if you define that as happiness, then what is pleasure? What is pleasure?
I have a good one for that.
Because I'm thinking that is pleasure.
Yeah,
Enjoying
I
a
know.
good food is for me a pleasure, right? Watching a movie is a pleasure, or buying some clothes, I think, that probably is pleasure for me. So then what is happiness?
Yeah, I was about to touch one thing. We all are talking about food and other things, but for me, that if you get a taste of giving it to somebody, that is more happiness for me. That's where, that's a permanent. In a way, if you want to get to the permanent happiness, just get the taste of it and you will feel the permanent happiness.
You mean like work, service point. So selfless act. Yeah, that, right. Yeah, see, that's what in one talk I heard, there's these very successful people that they make a lot of money. But are they all happy?
Steve Jobs is one example.
Right.
Earlier, he came to my mind when we were talking about in his Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs, yes.
Actually, in his last stages, when somebody asked, he remembered, though he's multi-billionaire, he remembered the walk he took to the ISKCON temple to get the food. Because when you have everything, you don't feel that, hey, because the reason why American people think, hey, we had a good life is because when you have everything, you don't enjoy. And it won't register in your mind. When you have less things, those things will register and you feel happy more. That's the difference there. Yeah. That will stick into the memory.
Yeah, I do appreciate this input, and that will give us, these are good deeds. Okay.
Correct.
I just want to give us more. So giving to others will give you happiness, but let's be clear, that is also not permanent.
Correct. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I mean,
that-
that's also not permanent. So
Yeah.
the topic, what the question was, the permanent. So
Yeah.
that is also, that will give a different kind of happiness. That's
Agreed.
good deed, but it will not be permanent happiness.
It's a deeper sense of happiness. That
But
service is
that is
always that.
also momentary. Let's not over exaggerate that.
But we are not all like right now, we are not discussing. So we will come to the Advaitic philosophy of what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to some extent, I agree with what he said. To be in presence, because the ultimate question, if we ask, the spirituality, what is? I mean, if I ask, what is that you want to get being a spiritual person, right? Some people say it's a liberation, detachment, and all of that.
Right.
But I've seen so many people who goes to ashrams for many years, an entire life. Go to Swami's, they proudly say that we are in Swami's fold for many years.
Right.
But are they happy? Are you a really happy person?
Right.
Are you spiritual? No. Why? Because you are not in that presence. You are, because that is not coming from within. It doesn't matter how long you go, how long you are in Swami's presence. Sir. So that is, I
Nice
think,
point. Very nicely said. Yes, Rajiv,
Yes,
sorry. We are
so
running out
I
of
was
time.
listening to the definition of happiness, and I think the definition of happiness vary with every people. Like Manoj said that he feels happiness when he eats good food. I feel happy when I teach, when I do research, and I feel happy when my students write to me, Dr. Chandra, I'm here, like I'm full-fledged doctor here, and this is because of you that you've been part of my journey. So that is my happiness. Somebody's happiness is, say, Swami's fold, but Swami always says happiness is inside you, right?
Yes.
Is inside you, and you have to reflect it.
Thank you. Sairam, we are at time, I think. We will just go to the life application. Actually, I've been putting this out here, but I think we have never discussed it. Today, I have a minute to actually talk about this. I think it is just to have a breathing exercise when you can. And this, I think, works for me most of the time. I will not say every time, but it is an affirmation that you can make to yourself, especially when you get up in the morning, to breathe out fear and breathe in faith every day. This and it helps me because I'm very aware of the fears that exist in me. Some of us may or may not be working around the part of this, but for me, I associate with fear very easily. So for me, this has worked, and so I have put in here. So it would be great if you can share any one of your practices that has helped you overcome fear, because and bringing in faith, because that is ultimately the only way the fear can be dissolved. So with that, I think we can end with Om and three Shantis. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sai Ram, thank you all for your participation today.